Hello, everybody. The Rotoworld Draft Day Marathon is rolling on. Another mock draft for you. This one, a super flex following our best ball drafts, our half PPR, our PPR all-star event with Matthew Berry, friends from Fantasy Life, friends from Yahoo. That's amazing. But now we get into one of the more increasingly popular formats of fantasy. Better than 2QB, in my opinion. In my opinion, it's very bad that quarterback Denny is so undervalued in regular fantasy leagues. But then in 2QB, it's like so valuable that it like kind of cripples the league.
Right.
You don't have two quarterbacks. It's so totally over. So enter the compromise known as super flex, where two quarterbacks are encouraged, but not absolutely strictly necessary.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it opens up a lot of avenues for roster construction. I think it makes it a little more interesting, a little more engaging than, like you said, the 2QB format. Everybody is just tripping over themselves to get two viable quarterbacks and then maybe a third and maybe even a fourth, depending on how conservative you're being with the position. And then and on the flip side, you have one quarterback leagues where it feels like quarterback doesn't matter at all. And you can get, Patrick Mahomes in the 8th round, which just seems ludicrous.
So Denny, quarterback is of paramount importance in Superflex. So guess what I'm doing with the number 1 overall?
You're taking Christian McCaffrey.
No way.
Not just taking Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to time out intentionally. Christian McCaffrey, because I couldn't quite decide. Like, do I want Josh Allen? And you've been doom saying this Bills offense, and like it's actually going to be really run heavy, and like Joe Brady is run heavy and bad, and like Jalen Hurts without Jason Kelsey. Lamar. I probably should have just taken Lamar or Patrick Mahomes, but I didn't do that. I timed out into Christian McCaffrey, and I'm now desperately hoping at the 2-3 turn I can get two quarterbacks. That'll undoubtedly happen.
Get ready to speak Bo Nix, buddy, is what
ready to speak. Denny, what are you speaking at number 3 after I took Christian McCaffrey? Noah Rubin of NBC Sports takes Josh Allen. He does the right thing and actually takes
right. Look, I'm gonna have trouble not taking Tyreek Hill here, or Justin Jefferson.
Very curious. Can't shake a 0 RB brain even in a little.
I don't know what you want me to do. Okay, so Hurts, Jackson, Mahomes are on the board. No, I can't do it. I'm going with Tyreek Hill.
Yikes. That's actually a way worse decision than Christian McCaffrey, because at least CMC is like heads and shoulders above the running back competition or any competition. Yeah. Whereas Tyreek Hill's is kind of jumbled, like 5 elite receivers. At least they're all elite.
Listen, I have a plan for quarterback. You guys don't even know.
No. Eric's expert team, my friend Eric Lindbergh, our friend, industry friend Eric Lindbergh takes Jalen Hurts. So, of course, the people who like aren't paid to be on camera, it's like, well, of course, I'm just taking a quarterback. Obviously, just take a quarterback in a super flex. They're probably like wondering, like, I thought Pat said this is a super flex. Are we doing something wrong? And no, you're doing something very, very right. Travis Souders takes Mr. Lamar Jackson. Neil Dutton, longtime friend of the site, takes Anthony Richardson. So yeah, again, the people that we didn't put on camera are all taking Kyle.
Yep, let's run it.
Kyle, tell the folks you did at number 8.
You guys are setting me up for a really tough decision if I need to stay on brand here.
At number 8 overall, I took CeeDee Lamb. I felt there was a drop-off at quarterback. Kyler Murray would have been the option. I'm like, I don't know. Is in the famous words of Patrick Daugherty, this guy's never been good. I don't actually believe that with Kyler, but I do think when you get past
Kyler's never ever been good.
Yeah, you actually believe it.
That was not even debatable. Yeah.
I don't think I believe that, but the fact that I have to think about it tells me like I'll just take CeeDee Lamb, who is clearly the best skill position player left on the board. Whereas, I mean, I know Denny's just going to beat me to the punch on Jaden Daniels, but I can cobble together a bunch of sort of living the stream-esque, this guy's this week's QB1, this guy's this week's QB1 at what will end up being the 2-3 turn. I guess my only sweat and maybe the bad strategy of that is reading the room. This entire cohort is doing exactly that. So I'll take a quarterback in the 2nd and then just get punished for pushing it to the 3rd because you guys are all going to be taking quarterbacks on that turn as well. So maybe that's a little bit of a bad read of the room, but I do think in Superflex, once that first tier is gone, let's find a dip back into the Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb types.
Eric Samulski makes it 4 for 4 on Rotoworld Talking Heads, not taking quarterbacks in Superflex. Eric, at the 11th pick of the first round, you took Jamar Chase. Was that the dilemma you were wondering as you take Kyler Murray on the way back? So you do now, at least thankfully, have someone playing the most important position. What was your dilemma?
Yeah.
And why did you take Jamar Chase?
It was more just, I mean, being close to the turn, I looked at the QBs on the board and I felt like there's a clump. And so whether I got Murray or whether I got Jaden Daniels or whether it was Dak Prescott, or it felt to me like one of those guys would be fine as my first quarterback. And so I just went with Chase, who I had as the highest skill position player still on the board. And I thought that on the turn, a quarterback would be taken, and there wasn't. And so I was able to get Murray as well. So I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, the money is rolling right into me. I'm about 8 or 9 picks away, and folks, we got Jordan Love, Jaden Daniels, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Caleb Williams, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Kirk. I'm taking 2 of these guys just for the record, and I'm actually feeling vindicated in my decision to take Christian McCaffrey at number 1 overall.
Yeah,
Bijan off the board. Denny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no. You're onto something there, because I think that was kind of my thing too, is that I can get like an elite receiver in Tyreek, and then hopefully get like 2 pretty solid quarterback options. I think that's what you're planning too. If you take the guys that I'm going for, though, I will leave the stream completely.
Well, I'm not taking Bo Nix in the second round, so
don't
worry too much about
and that's
that.
on you. That's on you.
I might take Geno.
I don't think
third.
McCaffrey 1 is that crazy in the super flex. To your point, Pat, like you're getting guy who is the clear number 1 at his spot. I mean, I think, obviously getting Allen or Hurts would feel good in a super flex, but like
someone say it'd feel better. In fact, there might just be a better pick.
Well, you're clearly taking the best player on the board, just in general. So I don't think that's ever like a bad idea.
The evil Eric, not Eric Samulski, Eric Lindbergh, just took Purdy. Yeah. Love just
Eric who made me change my name in the draft.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Eric, he's a bad guy, very bad guy. Garrett Wilson, Caleb. I really wanted Caleb Williams to fall. Well, yeah, it's a nightmare scenario, actually. It's Golden Tua and Trevor, and this is why you just go Josh Allen, number 1.
Look, sometimes the best content is informative in a way that's here's what you don't do. And you're going to get a lot of that on this show, I think, as all of us scramble for 4th round bonus.
Do I go Goff, Tua, or do I mix it up with T-Law? I've been taking Trevor Lawrence this year for some reason. I love Geno there, but he's not making
Trevor Lawrence. You don't even think he's good.
Yeah, he's never been good.
Well, you don't have to be good. So, whatever. Jared Goff, never good. Trevor Lawrence, definitely never good. I went Goff and Lawrence. Left Tua there for Denny, a skinny Tua. If Noah Rubin does not take a quarterback.
Noah, do the right thing. Do the right thing and do not take Tua. Yeah. So actually, I was posting on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter, today that I really like the Dolphins are talking about Tua's weight loss being a factor in how the offense ticks, how it works. And
it's because it's August. You got to say something. You're talking to the press every day.
I'm bullish. Everybody ignore Pat for a minute. I'm bullish on the Dolphins offense with a quarterback who doesn't need everything laid out for him. Like maybe he can do a few things off schedule. And I think it opens up the Dolphins offense. Also, the Dolphins lost so much defensive talent, although Miami fans don't want to hear that, but it's true. Anyway, I'm going to take Tua because I think they're going to not be able to just sit on the ball like they were for much of last year.
Yeah, Denny, kidding aside, last year, it didn't seem possible that there was another level to Tua's game. It kind of like the past 2 years, it seemed like he just bumped up against this hard ceiling. It's still possible that is the case, but he needed to change something. He needed to introduce a new variable. It was just painful last year, the lack of mobility. It was almost like Jimmy Garoppolo level too, in terms of just like, if he gets flushed, the play's over. Like there was just nothing. He was self-sacking a lot of times. He had to do something to change it up. And Tua, you got it. It's like the QB 16, 17, like in a super flex. You cannot argue with that with Tua. Kyle Dvorchak, have you taken a quarterback yet?
I did in the second round. I got a stack, which I feel good about. If we get another 1,700-yard season from CeeDee Lamb, probably get another high 4,000-yard season from Dak Prescott. So I got the stack. As expected, leaves us pretty thin at QB2. But I will say, in terms of talent for QB2, Pat, actually, here's a question. Has Justin Herbert ever been good?
Yes. No.
Okay, cool. No, I'll take it. That's the only bet, is that he was good. I mean, he was incredible 2 or 3 years ago, but he had the 5,000-yard 38, I believe, touchdown season 3 seasons ago.
One of the all-time fake good seasons by Justin.
Because it was 2020, I assume, right? Was it? Yeah.
No, I don't even know if it's the pandemic year, but he had one of the ultimate empty calorie counting stat seasons. The kind that Drew Brees, used to have every single year. And occasionally they'd go 13-3 and lose in the divisional round.
I was going to say that those Brees teams were good.
They were good. Eric, how extreme should the quarterback thirst be in a super flex? Where you made the argument that I actually wasn't wrong for taking. I was right for just taking CMC, the best overall player. How extreme should the thirst actually be in a super flex?
I will say, having just clicked on a receiver to get a stack of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray, and then seeing Chris Crawford take 2 QBs on the turn, and now I'm looking at who I could take as my second QB and feeling terrible about myself. I think that the thirst for QBs should be potentially higher than it was for both you and I, because now I'm in a rough spot with my QB2, and I think I'm gonna have to kick the can down the road. Because I just don't see, like, in the beginning of the 4th round, like taking Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. So Smith. I will. Yes.
All I'm saying, Ryan Grubb.
No, I mean, I kind of regret not playing it a little more savvy with the quarterback and maybe taking Geno a little later instead of Tua. I think Geno can easily be better than Tua in fantasy this year.
So Denny, I'll ask you. Superflex, obviously, no secret, quarterback is not just far more important than it is in regular fantasy. It's the most important position. But fantasy tends to be a losing game when you make max sums. Like in a Superflex league, if you don't get 2 QBs in the first 3 picks, you are screwed.
No, you're not.
Are you though?
No, you're not. And here's how you can play it. Okay, you can identify offenses and especially passing games that are being underrated. So maybe you think with Mike Vrabel gone and Callahan as head coach of the Titans, maybe you think the Titans are going to pass a little bit this year, right? So you can play it where you get Will Levis late as a starter in Superflex. You can, like I just mentioned, Geno in this new offense that I think will be pretty friendly for fantasy purposes. You could even, I know this sounds gross, but you get Justin Fields a little later as a guy who has rushing upside, the Konami code upside, who is not going at a premium because there's so much uncertainty around who is going to start the season for the Steelers.
Yeah, I think I proved the maxim wrong to myself. Sorry, Kyle, but I don't feel great after 3 rounds. I like that I have 2 quarterbacks. I have 2 mono threat quarterbacks and Trevor Lawrence and Jared Goff. And I am just like, I needed to be savvier about that, but I did. I truly just panicked, and it's not because we're like doing a live stream. This happens to me like every super draft. Like it's just like one of the.
I don't think that's the defense you think it is. No, guys, this happens all the time. I panic. You're not seeing the only panic.
I don't ever plan one of these things. I mean, I do like 2 super flexes a year. I don't plan for it.
I think I hate to bring a different sport up in the conversation here, but I think it's a little bit like when you're playing fantasy baseball and you're trying to like.
I'm gonna be sick.
It's horrible. I apologize, but. If you don't draft like one of the elite closers at the top, you wind up just drafting guys who could be decent in the role if they get the role. And I think if you miss out on quarterbacks, nailing 2 quarterbacks at the top of Superflex, you do what Denny said, where it's like you get guys who are on the periphery where if they get an opportunity, they could be decent. And then maybe you're holding a quarterback on your bench for 4 weeks until they get a job like Justin Fields. Or maybe you're kind of rotating guys early on based on matchups. And then maybe you have to do something gross like pick up Tommy DeVito on waivers in the middle of the year, but you get 3 good weeks out of it. Like, we know there are going to be injuries at the quarterback position. We know there's going to be turnover. If it doesn't go your way at the top and you're just filling in guys where you're thinking like, okay, if this guy gets an opportunity, I could get a decent super flex option out of it. That's not a bad way to get a couple of those guys later on in the draft, keep them on your bench and just kind of rotate through and see if you can salvage it that way.
I think the casual fantasy football fan would not be able to tell you if Tommy DeVito was part of the NFL side of that parallel or the baseball side. Oh, Tommy DeVito, closer for the Rays, or no, started a bunch of games for the Giants.
Goes outside.
And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of Tommy DeVito, Kyle. He's multifaceted. Tommy DeVito.
Who is the Jose Leclerc of quarterbacks is what our audience really wants to know.
Guys, I'm devastated. I thought I was a slam dunk for Malik Neighbors here, and
I'm sorry to do that, Denny. You were in my head when I took Neighbors.
Oh,
But
you jerk.
being on the turn, it's just like, listen, who do I want like the better value in Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith, or do I just want the player that I want?
God, I'm
There
going to
was
be
no
sick.
chance of being there when I.
I mean,
back
Neighbors
around.
in any format that isn't like best ball, from all the ADPs I've checked, man, he's just a layup. Like, just be the first person to take him ahead of ADP. Don't be like, oh, let me push him to close to his ADP. Like, I'm taking him cleanly ahead of ADP pretty much every time, because his ADP on Yahoo and on ESPN and on Sleeper and all that, oh boy, is it low. It's a tasty ADP.
It is absolutely. Like, he's going as wide receiver 28 according to Fantasy Pros. Like, I'm telling you, Malik Neighbors could miss 6 games this year and finish as a top 24 receiver.
No, I'm totally in for this.
Can I ask you guys? I mean, Travis Kelce just went off the board as the first tight end.
Never
Are you on board still with Kelce as the tight end 1?
I'm on board with Kelce as the tight end 1 in round 5, which isn't going to happen outside of a super flex. I am a little more on board with, because this, I don't know if it's Laporta or Kelce as the answer there. I just know that it's more palatable in the 3rd round than the years where Travis Kelce's pushed into the 1st round, or even like the late 2nd. Or I feel better even about a declining Travis Kelce. There's still such a touchdown floor, pretty decent yardage floor. I mean, and a nightmare season. Travis Kelce's getting 797 yards and like 9 touchdowns. And maybe that you shouldn't take that in the 3rd round in a non-super flex, but it's just a lot easier to digest for me. And like the 3rd or 4th or here in the 5th round for Travis Kelce, where I feel like ADP, the production has fallen, but I feel like his ADP has still fallen probably further than his production, if that makes sense. Real quick, I got to tell the folks about the Rotoworld Fantasy Football Draft Guide, which we are all here to celebrate. It is now available exclusively through a new partnership with Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. Get a Fantasy Life Plus subscription and receive the Rotoworld Draft Guide, plus fantasy, DFS, and betting tools to help you dominate all season long. Use promo code ROTO10 for 10% off. Go to fantasylife.com/Rotoworld to learn more. Eric, you are on the clock. Well, you were on the clock. You're now off the clock. You took Deshaun Watson, which, oh, wow, thought you were a good guy.
I know. I felt terrible about myself. It was between him and Gino, and I was thinking for you, Pat, I would do that, but then I remembered how long you made me wait to start this, and so I picked Deshaun Watson instead.
That's neither here nor there, and we'll talk about that after the show. But you have Kyler Murray, you have Deshaun Watson, Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave, Sam Laporta, no running backs. You have an elite tight end, 2 decent quarterbacks. How do you feel about the roster build so far?
Listen, I am not Denny. And so not having a running back makes me feel viscerally uncomfortable right now. I don't know what to do with my hands. But I think I liked the value of the picks when I got them. I don't love Deshaun Watson. Even let's just stick to like on the field. You don't really love what you saw last year.
No,
it didn't look like the same guy.
No.
So I'm a little iffy on that as my QB2. But then again, like I think Baker had a career resurgence is like a little overblown. And there are some concerns with Gino. I think I'll probably get another QB later. But I like what I did with the pass catchers, and I'll hope that being a super flex league and quarterbacks being bumped up so high that I can sneak a running back here, in my way when I come back on the turn.
Super flex to Kyler, Denny. It's not a 2 quarterbacks, so we're not starting 2 every week, obviously, but we would like to be starting 2 every week. How essential is a 3rd quarterback? It's a 12-team league, so not everyone's getting 3 starting quarterbacks. How much of a priority should you make having 3 QBs, Denny?
No, it's a good question. I'm seeing that Taysom is listed as a QB, which is devastating. So I'm actually gonna take Gino here as my QB3.
I'm really mad that we let Denny get Gino in the 6th round. That's a failure.
It is. It's a failure on the entire league's part. But I'm gonna take him because honestly, I have played it I have flown too close to the sun in these type of leagues. With the quarterback position, and man, it can put you in a tough spot in a hurry. You're talking about one injury to a guy, and he's out 3 weeks, and suddenly you're starting Ray McLeod in your super flex spot.
And suddenly you're losing the Scott Fishbowl to a literal plumber, Denny. Like, if that happens, like it's just never been more over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with Denny here on this one. They don't even have to be good. The thing is, Daniel Jones projects for like 14 weekly points. That's like the wide receiver 7 or whatever. Like that is really hard to replace in the flex position at any other non-quarterback spot, because even the third best wide receiver on your roster, if we're only starting 2 receivers, which I believe we are starting 3, but if
We are starting 3, we are starting.
if you're only starting 2, the third best receiver on your roster, if you hammer out receiver, is going to struggle to outscore Sam Darnold, Russell freaking Wilson, Daniel Jones. That's just how we score the position. So to me, he doesn't have to be good, probably has to be starting. So if I'm worried about how my bye weeks line up, maybe I'm not taking Drake May because I don't know when he's going to start. Sam Darnold on the other end, I don't know if he's going to start late in the season because he's not really great. But I think as long as you can lock them in as a starter and they are a quarterback, you do need to have that third quarterback just as a bye week filler. You have to get him in there.
And Kyle, a quick follow-up on that. Like, say Jacoby Brissett, the Patriots announced him as the week 1 starter officially today.
No, don't care.
No, hold on. Even if you think they're only starting for 2 or 3 games, that player has to be drafted, correct? Like any quarterback who is on the field in week 1 has to be drafted in a super flex, correct?
I think if it's Jacoby Brissett, he doesn't have to be drafted, mostly because I believe the first bye week of the season is like week 4 or 5, if I remember correctly.
I mean in a vacuum. Like, not going long on actual Jacoby Brissett ethics.
But I think the problem is the Patriots are going to have the lowest implied team total every single week. If JJ McCarthy was still healthy and Sam Darnold, I'm like, oh, Sam Darnold's definitely getting benched. I think when Sam Darnold starts, he can actually put up points. Now we have the certainty that he is just straight up starting. But I think when Sam Darnold starts, he can put up points. That is valuable. I do think if you're such a bad starting quarterback and you're not guaranteed to play more than 5 or 6 weeks, at that point, I'm not really sure I see the point in taking that guy. But the bad starting quarterbacks who still could put up fantasy points probably should be, even if I don't think Sam Darnold is starting the entire season. I still don't think he's starting the entire season, but he got a lot of more runway, obviously, with the McCarthy injury.
So just real quick, Kyle makes a good point. I just want to add to it. For folks doing super flex drafts in the coming days, I think the key to unlocking the quarterback position is what Kyle's talking about. Is finding guys very late who can end up to be, pretty solid starters. I maybe folks push back, but Will Levis, I think, because I think he has a little bit of rushing juice. I think Drake May has the rushing upside. Justin Fields, I mentioned earlier, and Bo Nix. I think those are the guys who can really open things up for you in this format.
Also, Daniel Jones. I mean,
sickeningly, Daniel Jones.
Rushing
guys, I can't.
No. Jones is in the
Brissett. Get my head around Jones.
He's in Brissett territory.
I think Jones had 700 rushing yards and 7 scores last year.
Kyle, what has happened to Daniel Jones's legs?
Physically, he's finished. He's finished.
Yeah. What's happened?
I mean, I guess if you think he physically can't play football anymore, sure. But
physically, mentally, emotionally.
Look, what I'm saying is, I think that we have to assume an ACL is going to take 2 years, maybe 3 to get all the way back from. And I mean, we see it every year. Javonte Williams barely could move his leg last year. Okay.
Yeah. His was, I don't believe those were the same ACL injuries though. You look at Breece Hall's ACL injury and it took him 5 or 6 weeks to he actually looked electric in week 1. He averaged 12 yards a carry, but to both be electric and then put up the volume we wanted, it took 5 or 6 weeks. His was roughly, I think a year and maybe a month more than that to get back, but he was elite by the end of the season. Javonte's, on the other hand, was a multi-ligament injury that he straight up just never looked like Javonte Williams through the end of the season. So I think in context,
this time will.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I think in context, it's important to understand that not all ACL or just season-ending knee injuries are the same. But who did you guys have on the NFC East team preview? Because if you wouldn't mind reminding me.
What now?
For the Giants, the NFC East team preview, the show you guys do?
Yeah.
Who do we have? Mr. Pat Leonard.
Leonard.
Denny, his reviews of Daniel Jones were decidedly mixed.
Yeah, we asked him, can Daniel Jones be fun for fantasy again? like he was at the end of 2022 when they were calling, 5, 6, 7 design rushes a game for Daniel Jones. And that made him, very, very, very much viable in 12-team formats. Anyway, Pat Leonard said that was sort of the plan, but he's not sure if it can happen right now because of, him coming back from this injury. So that's why I struggle to see him, group him in the Bo Nix, Justin Fields territory right now.
Well, Justin Fields is a different story. He's maybe the best runner in the NFL. My takeaway from Leonard's hit on your guys' show, which I thought was really informative, was he was like, yeah, just the injury stuff hasn't been a story for Daniel Jones. And that's the thing is, for a lot of these guys,
his normal being bad stuff being.
No, he's not a good quarterback. I'm not going to litigate him being a good quarterback. But when he plays, he is tend to run the football a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's more of the old school Konami code quarterback where you really plug your nose and say, this guy is just projects for more points per game than you should be able to get. And that's really valuable in Superflex. He's not good enough for me to project him for 17 starting games, but that's a different conversation.
Kyle, the Travis Souders in the 8th round just took Bo Nix as his second quarterback. All 12 teams now officially have 2 QBs through 8 rounds. Does that feel right? Sometimes I feel like more it'd be through 5 or 6, but Travis did play the waiting game. He got Bo Nix, which if you're playing the waiting game is a fairly good outcome to me. Do you think that sounds right? Where if we're not going to say you got to do it after 3, do you have to do it after 8? Do you have to have 2 QBs through 8? Does that feel right for having 2 quarterbacks in the Superflex? I don't know who wants to field this one. Denny.
Yeah, I'll go for it. I'll go for it. I think in terms of what should you do through X amount, I think especially Eric talked about this earlier. He was like, I don't know, man, Geno Smith, or do I wait and get Derek Carr? I mean, we talked about Justin Fields, Drake May, who won't start week 1, so you have to be careful with that. But these guys at the end of the draft project for the exact same as Aaron Rodgers or something, because Justin Fields is going to run 10 times for 80 yards every time he's out there. And now he could actually start week 1. So to me, it's just, you have to get a second. And like I said, I think you need a third starting quarterback as well. And it's more about reading your room. I would guess in a room that is mostly industry people, content creators, we're actually going to be more aggressive with our quarterbacks. Ironically, this show wasn't. And then we all panicked and we're back again, aggressive with our quarterbacks. I'm literally checking my phone because I'm on the clock in a slow super flex with my friends. Quarterbacks are going a lot slower in the home leagues than they are in here. So it's more so about knowing your room. I'd say we were probably on the slightly more aggressive side, just on us taking quarterbacks early and often for the most part.
Well, guys, earlier I said I did not like having 2 mono threat quarterbacks. And I was feeling like, man, I just panicked. I should have just waited, let someone with more upside, even if they have more downside, fall into my lap. So my solution to this problem is in the 8th round, I'm going to take a 3rd mono threat quarterback in Derek Carr. And I now have 3 quarterbacks that, absent injury, will be starting 17 games, which, as you guys alluded to earlier, not alluded to, as you said earlier, if your quarterback gets hurt in a super flex, it's kind of all right, that was fun. I'll see you guys later. It's either that or you're all right, I'm bidding $1,000 on Jake Haener, my entire fab now on the backup on the Saints. And this is where my conservatism as a drafter always comes back to haunt me. But I do feel just really good, at least, all right, whatever. I got 3 17-game starters. At no point will I not have a quarterback ready to go. And good, bad, neither. Nothing matters, Denny.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to get into discussion of nihilism, there's no better time to do it than in a super flex draft. True. But I will say, I don't mind Derek Carr. I know it's strange to see you pick him since you are the number 1 Derek Carr hater on earth.
He has me blocked on Twitter. I've never tweeted at him, to be clear.
But no, you're not. I mean, you love personally, you love him. Professionally, you can't stand him. But so I actually think that this offense could be kind of okay with Clint Kubiak calling plays and. Besides the Taysom factor, I think Derek Carr is like a custom-made QB3 for Superflex.
Denny, is anyone talking about the Taysom factor but you?
Oh no, I'm talking about the Taysom factor. I'm talking about the Taysom factor.
I think
where he's listed as a tight end.
Factor.
Yeah. By the way, it's only when he's tight end eligible. I don't care about the quarterback stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
Eric,
the people love Taysom.
Guys, I am Jameson Williams pilled.
I am too.
And this is weird for me because I have completely just ignored him for 2 years, like pretended he didn't exist in any format. But there is something brewing here. I'd say we had a Lions beat writer tell us like
Ben Raven came on 3 weeks ago. It's like he's blowing it up,
and he was like, no, it's not a question of if it's happening. It's a question to what extent is it happening. And, so you give this guy an 80-90% route rate. I think he can do silly things on a week-to-week basis. Now, he's going to have his down weeks, of course, but I do think that he's going to be a little less boom bust than we think.
Eric Samulski, you're close to being on the clock. You have Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Will Levis. You protected yourself at quarterback with some of that upside Denny was talking about. Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave, Sam Laporta. Still only have one running back, Alvin Kamara. It is round 9. Are you running back or bust here, or is that a really faulty way to approach it and your best player available here in the 9th round?
It might be a faulty way to approach it, but I think that's the way I'm going to approach it. Again, it's leaning into your own discomfort, right? And like I look at some of the names that I know, in Denny's great pieces that he's doing on Zero RB. They're the names that are still out there. And I look at them and I'm like, if that's my starting running back, I'm going to be sick. And it's just, again, it's my personal preference and what I'm used to. And so I maybe need to lean into the discomfort a little bit here. I did a really poor job. And this is just a good note, especially when you're close to the turn. This is a mock and I didn't check the guy picking after me and what he had. And so when I took Will Levis, I didn't realize that the person picking after me had 0 running backs and took 2 running backs that I wanted back to back, took David Montgomery and I forget who the other one was. So I was left with Alvin Kamara, which is not exactly what I want with my RB1. And so I'm going to have a gross pair of running backs here.
It's never been more over, is what you're saying.
Yes, I actually have, I'm going to, you guys keep talking about your love for Devon Achane, but I'm drafting Raheem Mostert here.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I know, look, Kyle is going to lose it here.
Well, what about me too?
Yeah, no, right. You, for some reason, you have betrayed millennials everywhere and you're taking Devon Achane. But I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't get
what don't you get about
upside in fantasy football in the 2-3 turn?
If you want to say I run the numbers, he doesn't project for as many points per game as the guy behind him. Sure. I guess the nerds regressed him to 4 yards per carry because they're all the same. Sure. If that's the argument, but I don't get it. I don't get 2 of the 10 fastest times recorded last year. I don't get the greatest yards per carry for a running back of all time, and he goes in the 3rd round.
That doesn't do anything for me.
And here's what Denny does get, though, is a 31-year-old scoring more touchdowns in 1 year than he had in his previous career combined, and wearing down horrifically as the season wore on. But he's going to do it again, Raheem Mostert.
But he doesn't. Also, to be clear, what started this is that I took Raheem Mostert here as my RB2.
It was a good pick if Eric did it.
And just so you know, it's Raheem Mostert. The next running backs up on the board based on ADP are Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams. So for me, it's banking on a better overall offense, right, than I think the offense for the Steelers is going to be, or I think the offense, even the Bears, is going to be improved. I'd rather have a guy who is locked into probably the most carries in the Dolphins offense, even if they're not the most explosive carries. He's going to get more goal line carries. Yes, if Denny's point about the defense, which I agree with, comes to fruition, then that's going to be probably more Achane if they're playing from behind than Mostert when they were running out leads. But I still think we're dismissing Raheem Mostert because of the love for Achane, and I don't think those two things need to go hand in hand. When you're getting into this range, I have Raheem Mostert as my RB21, right after James Conner, but ahead of Najee Harris, ahead of Aaron Jones. To me, that feels like a safe place to draft who I think is a pretty solid running back in a very good offense,
Eric,
rather than taking Aaron Jones.
You mentioned one of the single most important factors in fantasy drafts, which is offensive environment. And I feel like is the ultimate tiebreaker. You laid it out perfectly. When you're deciding, you can't decide between two players. Spoiler alert, just take the guy who's on the better team. And I'm doing an article on this. By
Pat,
the way.
you post that article because you've been working on it for weeks, right? It's out now, I assume.
Yes, folks. We're praying. We're looking very powerfully into having it out by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. But I did it last year. I really enjoyed it. I'm tempting to do it again this year. And it sounds very simple because it is. But if you can't decide who to take the guy on the better team.
I mean, Dolphins, would you put them as number one offense environment? I kind of think I would.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth here, which is really the way you should do analysis. And I'll say that I'm bullish on the Dolphins.
Curious.
And I can't stomach Achane in the second round. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you're over 40. He's over 40. It's fine.
I'm just saying it's just really like it's tough. It's tough to take him when you could take. I mean, let me just see who's going around him real quick.
Denny, I'm going to tell you one thing. Look out your window. I believe you might have a window to your left. The green stuff that's all over the ground. Touch it, feel it, experience the earth, experience the world, and then draft the most explosive player in the NFL.
Are you telling me to live a little?
Oh, drafting Achane isn't living a little. This is doing hard drugs on a motorcycle. It's awesome.
Well, all right.
That sounds dangerous and unsafe.
Well, it's dangerous to be clear because he's getting 12 touches a game. But other than that,
so you have to okay, all right. So he's going around Derrick Henry, Drake London.
You don't like any of these guys?
Isaiah Pacheco. No, you're right. I'm wrong.
That's Denny. You just inadvertently you did make the case for Achane. The reason I can't stop drafting Achane, I'm normally a conservative drafter. He's at a part of the board just palpably lacking upside.
Wow.
I want someone who might help me like single-handedly win the league. That's why I take Achane despite the discomfort with what is extreme risk. You can't explain away the risk with Devin Achane. It's very, very real. I think the same thing is true with the upside.
I'm glad we could have this discussion because what happened was I proved myself wrong. So that's really what I was going for. So I actually think if I'm going to be bullish on the Miami offense, and I am, then I think I necessarily have to be bullish on Achane. So I'm glad I figured that out in late August.
Fine.
But you just made a tremendous pick live, Denny, while you were figuring it all out.
What was Shakir?
Yeah,
I like Shakir a lot.
I don't think. I mean, I am Bills biased, but I don't think enough people really.
Eric, I didn't know you were a Bills fan.
Yeah, no, I don't talk about it ever. I keep it pretty close to the vest. But I think all the Keon Coleman and even like Curtis Samuel love. I think we're underestimating how the stats that Shakir is going to put up in that offense. I think he will probably finish as the clear top wide receiver in that offense, even though I think that Kincaid will be the best pass catcher in the offense.
Right.
Two quick things real quick, two housekeeping items. Like we're not pointing fingers. We don't really know who was responsible for this draft starting late. We're trying to figure we're not going to point fingers about that. Chris Crawford said that the delay did enable him though to defeat Virginia Tech 66-7 with Old Dominion on College Football 25. So we must give Chris props there. And we have to give props to our friends at Yahoo because they have made this fantasy football season better. They've made it $1 million better. Create or join a private Yahoo Fantasy League and enter the $1 million NBC sweepstakes, plus earn extra entries to win when players on your fantasy roster score a touchdown during an opening weekend game on NBC or Peacock. Download the redesigned Yahoo Fantasy app or go to NBCSports.com/fantasymillions to learn more. So it's lost to the ages why this draft started 15 minutes ago.
We do have people on it looking into it.
Yeah, we're all trying to find the guy who did this.
Lost the ages.
And I think it was Pat personally, but we'll see. By the way, I played my quarterback situation terribly here. Really, really poorly.
Let's see what you got, Denny. Your whole team, you have Caleb Williams, Tua, Geno. Then you have Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Devontae Smith, Ramondre Stevenson, Javonte Williams, who I wanted very badly when you took him, Xavier Worthy, J-Mo, and Khalil Shakir. But why are you upset about the way you played your quarterback situation?
Okay, because the way I would have played it is I like the Caleb pick. Good job by me on that. But I should have faded Tua. I panic picked Tua because he lost weight, and I have Tyreek Hill. So that was dumb. What I should have done is not drafted Tua. Should have taken Geno later, right, as my QB2.
I'm stunned that you did not do that.
I'm a believer. And then I should have taken Justin Fields late, and that was the play.
Well, it's the play, but someone was going to beat you to it.
Well, you don't know. Justin Fields went at a very reasonable ADP here. There's no way to figure it out, but I saw him go off the board at a reasonable ADP.
Well, I mean, yeah, a guy who's going to make 0 starts this year.
Oh my goodness, the guy's going to make 10 starts.
He's making at least 10 starts. I mean, probably week 1 being one of them. The dying star that is Russell Wilson. I meant that sounded more more bleak than I wanted to. I meant the star in the sky. I view him like a red dwarf that is like almost out of energy and about the supernova. It's not happening.
Pat started it by going, "That's a little bleak. Let's not take it so bleak," and then got infinitely more bleak. Infinitely quick.
I didn't because I was worried it sounded like I meant dying human. No, I meant something. I meant the death of the entire galaxy.
Yeah, I meant the death of the universe, not a human, obviously.
No, I
don't want to make this pick. I'm gonna be sick.
Kyle, what is the pick that is making you physically ill? Oh wow.
Yep.
Austin Eckler, though, you got the RB1 on the Commanders. You got the goal line back on the Commanders. I don't know why you're so upset about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love it, but I think in some sense, when your second running back is just going to be a complete mix of just guys. Like, I don't think any of these guys are terrible. I don't think they're great. It's Zach Moss right now, and it was literally Eckler as my third running back. You got to have a little humility and take the guy who probably is going to get a lot of touches, especially could get high value touches. I think Brian Robinson is just a better between the tackles runner at this point in their careers. It seems almost hard to dispute, but at the same time, Eckler's making some money. He has a really strong history of fantasy production, and he fell really far. You got to take the touches when you're RB2.
You got to take the touches, Kyle, and you have to take the high value touches. We know about the receptions. I have felt all summer people are underselling the possibility that Austin Eckler will be the goal line back, or at least in the goal line mix. Like, obviously, B-Rob has that profile, but Austin Eckler was the goal line back for some really high scoring teams. Coaches are not as creative as we think. He knows, Cliff Kingsbury, that Austin Eckler scored a lot of touchdowns for the Los Angeles Chargers. Yeah. And I just don't think – I think it's in the range of outcomes that he gets goal line opportunities. Maybe he's not the primary goal line back, but I think people are going to be very surprised and maybe haunted by that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it. It's well within the range of outcomes. I believe same show, that NFC East preview, had a lot of good nuggets. It was JP Finley you guys had on, kind of outlined this. He's like, yeah, they don't really have set roles. They're not this guy plays downs 1 and 2, and this guy plays downs 3. This is goal line man. They are a bit more fluid than that. At least that's the way that's the way JP Finley laid it out. And at the cost of, I think mine was pick 140 or something like that. That's priced easily within the range of outcomes, or, in fact, the rest of the draft priced it as if it can't happen. And at that price, when I need an RB2, I had Zach Moss, but I don't know if he's a long-term solution to RB2. When I still need shots at RB2, if the room gives it to you, you got to acknowledge, like you said, it's well within the range of outcomes. It's certainly possible because it's happened many years in the past. They didn't have Brian Robinson on those teams, but I think it's at least something to consider when you need a second running back.
Goal line man is my favorite superhero. I appreciate that he normally
was a big flop for Marvel, but I still love.
Yeah, well, it's he lives his day-to-day life as Mike Tolbert, and then on Sundays he morphs into goal line man, and I'm a big fan of that. But I just wanted to piggyback on what Kyle said. Like, I was in the same situation where, like, I had Mostert as my RB2, and we already talked at length about that, and so I took Gus Edwards as my RB3. And it's a situation where, like, do I feel great about having Gus Edwards? No.
No, you're physically sickened by it.
Right. But is there a chance that Jim Harbaugh, like, rides Gus Edwards for long stretches in this offense, especially in the red zone? Like, yeah, that is, I've seen the Chargers receivers, and I want to hand the ball off to whoever is in the backfield as much as possible. And we've seen Gus Edwards be a solid enough running back in the past where, like, am I going to love that he's on my team? No, but if he's getting red zone looks, can he be a solid RB2 in certain matchups? Like, yes. And I think Denny is more versed in this with the 0 RB thing than others, but I think you have to find the avenues to solid fantasy production where you're like, this pick isn't great, but if he's doing this, I can eke out RB2 weeks in certain matchups, and that's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's this pick isn't going to win me the league. I have made other picks that I believe will win me the league. I need some that aren't going to lose me the league. Not drafting any RB2s will lose me the league in the long run. I will need to find some production there. I think winning at quarterback and winning at tight end and receiver is what's going to win me this league. Sometimes you just got to have guys who punch in their 9 to 5. They don't have to win you the league. You've already made those picks. Is the thesis with my Austin Eckler, your Gus Edwards, these types of players. With Denny's, all of his many, many, many boring running backs that he loves. It's not that Denny thinks that that's the league-winning pick. No. It's that you can hammer a receiver and not lose your league with the boring guys who get 220 touches.
Kyle, that is why I took, despite you mentioned being physically sickened earlier, that's why I took Devin Singletary.
Oh, wow.
One of those guys.
Wow. Look how the turntables have.
So yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Look, I did want to mention something just from a tutorial standpoint, learn from my mistakes standpoint. Sorry, I should have told you not to drink your cup of water there.
We're always learning from your mistakes, Denny.
So I got down real bad at tight end, horrifically. Okay, like I just kept fading the position, and then I looked up and I didn't recognize any of the names.
You're like Taysom Hill down there somewhere.
No,
Yahoo lists goal line man as a quarterback.
And anyway, yeah, I mean. So what you do in that situation, ideally, you don't panic, okay? You accept what you've done, and you just completely punt the position, okay? Forget it. You're not going to save it. It's unsalvageable. You get a Tyler Conklin, like Pat has starred here. I'm going to take him from.
Oh yeah, everyone can see my cue.
I am.
Well, Pat, I have Drake May, and I wanted Jalen Polk to pair up with him, and I see him in your queue, and it's just like watching a horror movie. I know what's going to happen.
When I let it count down all the way on that one too.
It hurt. I could hear like the high strung piano just really grinding my gears because I wanted Polk to pair with May.
So don't try. Like my suggestion is something I've seen a lot over the years for well-adjusted folks who are doing their home league drafts or whatever. Like they try to panic and balance their team. I haven't taken a tight end. I'm going to take Dalton Schultz 10 picks above ADP. Like don't do that. Just accept what's happening and just punt the position.
Denny, truly evergreen fantasy advice. If you forcing the issue just always compounds the problem. What were you going to say, Eric?
Well, I was going to say you have to realize the draft is a part of the season, but the waiver wire is also a part of the season and arguably as important as the draft. And instead of, if you like the picks you made early on and you find yourself weak at a spot, instead of saying I have to have balance, well, I'll just continue to crush one position if I need to, if the value isn't there. And if I come into the season with my running back room pretty light, but my wide receivers really stacked, well, then I don't need to chase every potentially dynamic wide receiver on the waiver wire. I can save my money, or I can save my fab position, or however your league does its waiver wire, and try to get the running back that pops. And then all of a sudden I've fixed my draft weakness with a kind of like a targeted free agency attack plan, rather than trying to create some fake balance in a draft, which means I have to, spread my interest wide in the waiver wire. And now all of a sudden I'm just kind of spread too thin as opposed to filling the needs I really have.
Eric making an extremely important point. Another obvious one, but the season does not end with the draft. And we would all be well served to remember that.
Well, Denny's season ended in the draft, but some of us will continue on.
No,
Kyle,
maybe.
We haven't really checked in on your overall team. Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert anchoring your super flex team at quarterback. CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, Amari Cooper, Kyron Williams, Zach Moss, Kyle Pitts, the Zoomer inside you, Calvin Ridley, Brian Thomas Jr., Drake May, Austin Eckler, Rico Dotto, Tyrone Tracy. How are you feeling?
This team's good. This team's pretty good. I don't know at what point in the schedule, if you'll have already listened to it or not. I crushed my best ball team. This one, I feel like with really any non-standard format, when you get in a draft with industry folk, they really push each other to make good picks. Whereas when we hop on a best ball draft, I'm just firing off. I love the takes. I love it. You guys made me feel a little thin at quarterback. Like you guys let me get some value in a guy like Kyle Pitts. And then I immediately say, oh, Pat always says he's never been good. Has he ever been good? So I do feel, although I like my team, I think you guys forced me into not drafting a monster. Whereas when you get in a home league or in a best ball draft, you have a little more freedom to build these really strong teams.
Amen, brother. And as I'm staring at, so Eric says, quote unquote, the season, also you can add players. But to me, the 15th round here, this pick, I mean, this determines the fate of my season. And it's Bucky Irving or Michael Wilson. And Kyle, why have the best ball bros cooled on Bucky Irving as a late round flyer? That was kind of the impression I got on ADP chasing the other day. Is that real, or am I just totally making that up?
Well, there was a time it was the first preseason game. He didn't get that true I'm the number 2 running back stuff like Tyrone Tracy did in the first preseason game. The first preseason game, Tracy goes out, I believe it was 2 series with the starters and gets pulled. Like, assuming the starter didn't start, which in this case he didn't, Devin Singletary, you see the 2 running back if he's clearly the 1-for-1 handcuff type of player or just the clear direct backup to the starter. If he makes the start, he goes out, he gets some drives, he gets pulled. That's what it looks like when your role is secure. Bucky Irving didn't get that. I will say in his second game, and he's also had a quiet camp. He really hasn't generated a ton of buzz. In his second game, he did get that kind of treatment where they start to settle in as, oh, you're better than, as it turns out, Sean Tucker. Chase Edmonds is still hurt. I don't know if Chase Edmonds is going to make the roster. He's barely practiced this summer. So I think the cooling has gone too far. I think at a certain point when we really weren't sure if Bucky Irving was even the running back 2, could be the distant 3rd, that's fair. We get that information and then we adjust. Time to adjust back. I think he's the RB2, and it's a pretty strong bet to make as a team's RB2 when I think all of us on this show are like, yeah, Rachaad White eats snaps. He goes out, he gets a lot of volume. He hasn't done a ton with it, especially on the ground. If someone's going to take work for him, it would be a young, pretty good prospect until the combine, Bucky Irving.
Denny,
isn't the he's going to take work from Rachaad White the death sentence, the death knell for every preseason running back, whether it's like Sean Tucker or Keyshawn Vaughn or anytime it's this guy's coming for Rachaad White's job, and then they just no carries during the regular season. Not to say Bucky Irving will follow that path, but
no, he will. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, we can pretend he's not going to right now. It's kind of a tough one to put you on the spot for, Denny, because when I get asked these kind of broad questions, like who's your favorite sleeper, I'm like, I don't. Are there players in the NFL? Who is someone you find yourself taking near the end of every single fantasy draft? For me, it's Tyler Conklin. You stole him from me, though. Who is your favorite late round flyer right now?
I am sorry. By the way, our friend Neil Dutton took Taysom Hill again, not tight end eligible. So Neil is just being sick there.
Neil's just a sick guy. He's English. Their sense of humor sometimes I don't get it.
I don't get it. Make one funny joke, the UK, please. Anyway, Braylon Allen is a guy I'm trying to scoop up at the end of every draft because it appears I know that he kind of rotated in the last preseason game, the second preseason game for the Jets, and that gives me a little pause, but not much because of how bullish Robert Saleh and the coaches have been. Braylon Allen I think is a 3-down option for the Jets if Breece Hall misses any time. And I'm, again, this is not hoping Breece Hall misses any time. If it does happen, I think Allen can just slide in there and be league winner is probably maybe an overstatement, but I think definitely RB1 territory.
No, I couldn't agree more on Braylon Allen, who kind of already had that before training camp started, but then doing what you love to see, just solidifying the narrative, solidifying what we thought was possible for him. Yeah, absolutely. Braylon Allen has become one of the very best late round picks. Eric, you're about to be on the clock for your final pick, the 15th round. What are you thinking? Who is maybe in your queue, and who is someone you've been taking in the final rounds of fantasy drafts?
Well, it's been Braylon Allen. I've been taking in the final rounds of fantasy drafts, and Ray Davis. I think that they are both the whole idea of okay, draft a running back who, if they get the starting job, are in an offensive environment that is, will lead to some success. I know Josh Allen had 15 rushing touchdowns last year. If you watch the Bills game, a lot of that is because Latavius Murray could not convert 2-yard runs at the goal line. Like Latavius Murray got a lot of goal line rushes for the Bills last year. If Ray Davis takes that role, you could be looking at somebody who is used in the red zone, takes some of the Josh Allen rushing TDs away, but also, has some like deep league value, and then could have more value if he becomes a starting running back. James Cook continues to drop passes in practice at a rate that's alarming for somebody who was the best receiving back in his draft class. I'm also going to take Justice Hill here to round it out because, Derrick Henry has a lot of wear and tear on those tires. Harbaugh has said Justice Hill is going to play a lot. I don't know how much we want to take him at his word, but again, if you're in
Jim
this
Harbaugh's
part of the
very
draft,
honest man, according to the NCAA.
yes,
Well,
different, yes, but what about his brother? But I'm like, we saw Tajay Spears carve out a role alongside Derrick Henry last year. Like, could Justice Hill do the same? Sure. If Henry's foot acts up, if he just kind of loses a step, like, could Justice Hill become, a viable deep league option for me in a PPR format? Like, sure. So I'll take a gamble here.
The draft is over. It was going so fast. I was begging my human drafters to slow down. Denny Carter, as the group chat pointed out, paid zero heed and smashed the draft button on Ray Davis. Denny, you missed about 4 different requests to take the entire clock on your pick.
I did. I should be looking at
You were too dialed in. That's fine, though, because this is just a professional group of drafters. Again, as you guys got alluding to, putting us on our back foot, kind of, which you should feel. Like, if you're in a sharp room, you should never feel like, oh, man, I'm getting an absurd value every single round. Really, really good stuff. Back foot drafting for all of us. Thank you to Noah Rubin from NBC, Chris Crawford from NBC, Eric Lindbergh, a friend of the website, Mr. Kyle Dvorchak, integral part of this website, Eric Samulski, same to him, Patrick Daugherty, me, Nick Schlane.
You just thank yourself? Is that what happened?
He did say that, yes.
Nick Schlane, a multi-sport star, Jason Brown, a friend of the site, Mr. Denny Carter, the one and only Denny Carter, Neil Dutton, one of the oldest friends of the site. Thank you so much. Travis Souders, one of the oldest friends of the site, Chris Riley, who did 2 of these drafts for us. Thank you so much. And any final thoughts, or are we ready to send the people into Denny's mock draft countdown here on the Rotoworld Draft Day Marathon?
I'm ready to go, folks. Come on, join me. We'll have some fun. We're
going to have a lot of fun with Denny on the Draft Day Countdown. We've been having fun all day on the Draft Day Countdown. You may wonder how we did it all in one day. Well, that's an industry secret. We're never going to tell you how we did that. And you may, why is Pat wearing a different shirt in every single one of these? You know what?
Wardrobe changes.
You ever heard of a wardrobe change?
If you're watching that clock up there, it's at 8:35 right now. When that hits 0, Pat changes his t-shirt. That's what that clock is for.
And also, he sweats through his shirt during draft.
Very true, actually, Denny. You're not supposed to take people that behind the curtain.
I'm sorry, then.
You're not supposed to be that behind the curtain. But seriously, thank you so much to everyone who's been helping us draft. Thank you to Eric. Thank you to Kyle. Thank you to Denny. Thank you most of all to our viewers. We hope you've been having fun, and we hope you will continue to have fun as the Rotoworld Draft Day Marathon rolls on.